Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at applying Bubble's concept of custom states to Toddle. Toddle, if you're not aware, is a next generation front-end no-code builder, and for Bubble developers looking for an alternative, I'd definitely advise that this is your first port of call to look at, and this series of videos is just to let Bubble developers know how that they can quickly and easily get up to speed by applying their existing skills into another front-end builder. And apologies up front if there's an echo in this video, it's just that I've moved into my new office and I haven't had it soundproofed or put any soundproofing in here just yet, so I'm just having to do my best with this, but it shouldn't stop me from making videos. Hopefully we'll get that sorted out very, very soon. But anyway, let's crack on. So custom states in Bubble are pretty straightforward. They allow you to store information into memory on a page or on an element, and it just means that you can store dynamic data without having to go up to the database. And we generally get at them from the eye here, and then we've got different types. We can have numbers, we can have text, we can have yes, no's, which are Boolean, and we can have dates and some other primitive types and many other different data types that we can have, and then we can access those in workflows. Pretty straightforward. Obviously if you're a Bubble developer, you know all this pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward stuff. So you can add an action, and then we can just set the state of an element, and then we can do what we need to do with that. We can select the element, and then obviously then the custom state that we need to set the value of. So it's fairly straightforward what we have to do. Now in Toddle we have a very similar thing, except that we call them variables. So I'm on a page at the minute, and without selecting an element in my elements tree, I get the component data on the right, and here we've got variables. So variables are exactly the same thing as custom states to all intents and purposes. And when we select to add a new variable, we obviously give it a name, just like we do in Bubble. The main difference here is that you're not asked for a type, the type of the variable. And the reason being is that Toddle infers it, which is quite similar to how JavaScript works, is it infers the type. So for example, here we've got something in inverted commas, which effectively means that it's a text. Now in Toddle and in programming in general, you don't call it a text, you call it a string, which comes from way back in the day for string of characters. And you know, we can sort of put in there whatever details that we like. So obviously when we're creating one in Bubble, what we can do is we can set the type here, and we can have data types and option sets and whatever. They're slightly different. That's something that I can cover in a different video, but what we're looking at is what we call the basic types, or the primitive types. So we've got text, number, a numeric range in Bubble, which is its own thing, date range. Let's look at text, number, date, and yes and no, which is a Boolean. So they're your main basic primitive types. Text, what we call a string in Toddle. Number, we just call it a number again in Toddle as well. A date, again same in Toddle, and then a yes no. Now in Toddle we don't have yes no's, we have what we call Booleans, and that is the two values in a Boolean in Toddle and in general development is true and false. So all that Bubble have done is try to abstract true and false into yes and no. So it's the same thing, it's just slightly different wording. Okay. And so let's have a look at this. Because we've got this in inverted commas, then Toddle will imply that to mean a string, which is fair enough. If we put a number, 0 for example, it will infer that to be a number. And if we actually put in a Boolean value of true or false, then it will do that as well. So for example, true, it will infer that. So the best way to infer a Boolean value in Toddle is to, rather than type it in here, is to actually click the little formula icon here, which will become very familiar to in Toddle, and we can then just say that we want this Boolean value to be true, okay, or we want the Boolean value to be false, okay, and then that will then set the initial value of my Boolean to this, okay. But for this case, we're just going to, let's say, we're just going to say that we're going to have the string of Clive for my name, and then that will infer it to be a string. Okay, so in Bubble we have the concept of binding. So on here what I can do is drop a text element in here, and what I can do then is in here I can do insert dynamic data, as us Bubble guys all know, and then what we can do is pick up the element it belongs to. In this case it's the page, and then we can select the value. Okay, now in Bubble, as we all know, when you're actually just editing it, you simply get what you put in the as dynamic data, and then you have to sort of preview that then to be able to then see that running live. You can see that it picks up that value from the custom state. Okay, and we have a very similar principle in Toddle. So in this main div is like the main container on the page. You don't need it. We could just drop elements directly in the page, just like we did with Bubble then, in Bubble's element tree. But by default we get a div, so let's put things in there. So we can either click add element, and let's say that we're going to put in a span. Again, that's just a container for text, and then we can style the span. What we'll do is just stick some padding of 32 pixels there, just so that we get some spacing. And then in this little text element that is automatically added with the span, on the right hand side, just like with Bubble, what we can do is to actually click the formula. If you're wondering where all the styling things is in Toddle, basically it's on the main element, which in this case is a span, and then you style it all on there, and then the span is purely just the text. So obviously you can put a standard value, but like Bubble, in Bubble you do insert dynamic data. In Toddle you click on the formula, and all that we do then is say where we're going to grab the value that we want from, and then all we've got to do is to pick variables, my name, and then we're going to get Clive. Now the big difference here between Toddle and Bubble is that we, even in edit mode, we can see the actual value that we're going to get. And if we just click to play at the bottom there, which we can also do that by just pressing T, we get exactly the same result, because it's giving you that live within there as well. So binding is very, very similar in terms of just putting a value on the page by getting the value from a custom state. In Toddle it's with variables, but it's a very sort of similar thing. So let's go on and let's add an input in here now. So let's just drop ourselves down here to drop an input on there. I haven't actually got this set up, have I, for let's just say we want it as a column. That's fine. So on our input, what we can do in Bubble is we can come here, and we have this thing for initial content, and the initial content is really key to what it actually does, because what we can do insert dynamic data. Again, it's important to remember for Bubble developers that when you do this insert dynamic data, it's exactly the same thing as just on here clicking the formula. Wherever you see this little FX, it's exactly the same thing. So in the initial content, what we can do is insert dynamic data, and then we can pick up the element that it's contained in, and then the name of the custom state, and then we get that value in there. And then if we run that, okay, and we change this value. Okay, what's interesting to note, even though both are pointing to the same custom state, it doesn't actually change when you do that. And the reason being in Bubble, as everybody knows, if you've done anything serious with Bubble, is that it literally is initial content. You're telling what to bind it from initially. The minute you change it, it loses that connection to the custom state. And there are ways around it. We can put it in a group, etc., and play around with that. But generally speaking, Bubble doesn't have what we call a two-way binding, two-way data binding between a custom state and the element. Okay, now it's completely different in that regard to Toddle. So what we can do is to add an input, okay, in there. We'll just pop that above the span. Okay, and in fact Yeah, that's fine. So let me just change the input in here, and I will just change the background color. Sorry, change the background color so it inherits it, so we don't get that awful black background to it. Okay, and then what we can do on the input is, rather than initial value, we actually bind it to the variable. So when we go over here to attributes, and we've got this option for bind it to variable, and we just pick the variable that we want to bind it to. And if you notice here under value, all it's done, it's automated this process for us to say, that's basically its way of saying insert the dynamic value or insert a formula, just to say that's what it's going to bind it to. Okay, so then what we can do then is, if we run that, and let's say that I need to just, what we need to do there is just change the color of the background with that one. So I'm just going to do the same thing and clear that, and then we get that. That's the reason why we didn't see it. So let's play, and when we come over here, we can then change that to something else, and immediately there's that two-way data binding. So in Bubble, we already shown you it's fairly straightforward to add a workflow and set the state within a workflow, and you can change it to whatever that you like. Okay, so it's very, very similar in Toddle. So what we can do is, let's add a button. Okay, so let me put some gap spacing in here of, let's say, 12 pixels. And let's say we want to, when you click that button, we want to reset the values, want to reset the name. Okay, so let's just change that to reset name. Okay, and very similar to what we have in Bubble is, we click on the button, and over here on the right we get events, and we get lots of different events in Toddle. We don't just get the bog standard click one like we do in Bubble, but obviously most of the time it's just the on click on a button, but sometimes it's nice to have all the other things available to you as well. So we click, and then all we've got to do is to then say when click is add an action, and we just under variables set my name, and I just need to clear that value out there, and that will do it for us. So when we run, there's Dave, reset name. Okay, so it's very, very similar to what we have in Bubble in that regard. So let's say, for example, that we've got a number that we want. So in variables, I'll add another one, and I'm going to call this, let's say, the total. Okay, I'm going to set that to 0 as its initial value. So what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to bind it to that variable instead. Okay, I'm going to change the type of it to be a number. Okay, now it's important to remember that all that does is so that the input behaves accordingly. Okay, and I will also bind this to that one as well. Well, actually I won't. What I will do is I'll do something different with that, but for now I will just get rid of this here, so it's not linking to that name anymore. Okay, so let's say you had a calculation whereby whatever number you put in, it just adds 10 to it, just as an example. So let's just change this to calculate instead. We want to display in this here, in this span, what the result is. So you put a number in, and what is it when we add 10 to it. So again, we can use formula in the same way we would use insert dynamic data in Bubble, and then we will simply just say that what we want is we want the total. Okay, now because that's grabbing that out of an input, we'd need to turn that into a number. It will generate that. So all we've got to do is just add another node for number. So all I'm doing there, by the way, I was a little bit quick with that, wasn't I? Is just to click the plus to add another one. So what we're doing is where each node takes a value and outputs a value. So some nodes take multiple values, some just take one value. In this case, the number just takes one value that we take it from the total variable, but it only ever outputs one value. So the total is going to output its value, which will be initially be wrapped up as a string because it's going to take that from the input. We turn that into a number, and then we're simply then going to use the add formula, and that's the input for the first one, and the second input is what we're going to add to it. And so this is going to be a static value of 10. Okay, and so we can already see that it's doing what it needs to do in the background. So if we run it, and we're going to then add, let's say 32. Okay, and that's simply how you would do basic calculations in there. So one of the things with Toddle, I would say, is when you're looking at these formulas, you can imagine just how powerful that this can get. These can get seriously powerful. So kind of a formula is kind of all of the power of Bubble's expression builder, plus all the power of a lot of its workflows as well. So just one other note, by the way, with the formula builder, is this output is simply what you're going to get. Okay, that's what all of the accumulation of all of this is. So you can see what the output is live based on what you're doing in the editor. So it takes on the current value of the variables that you're working with, or the information that you're working with, and tells you what that result is going to be in the actual editor. Okay, so now let's say that we want to put that same formula but within an event. So we want to actually calculate a value, but this time actually assign that into a variable when you click the button. Okay, so if we go back to our component data, and let's say we're going to add another variable, I'm going to call this one calc. Okay, and let's set that to 0 so it refers it as a number. Okay, and what we want to do then is we want to display that calc in here. So we're going to go to this formula, and we're just going to click the little bin icon to get rid of that formula. Okay, and then this time we're going to bind this one to that new variable that we just created, which is going to be a calc. Okay, so that's all good. And then what we want to do is to do the same calculation what we did a moment ago, except this time we want to do it behind an event. So similar to what we did before on the button, is we can just go to click, and then we can then set calc. Okay, this time rather than putting in a static value in here, we then can go to formula again to perform that calculation. So we're going to pick up the total, which is what's assigned to the input box, and then again we're going to turn that into a number, and then we're going to add 10 to it. Okay, you can imagine if we had another value, another variable that we needed to pick up, we could simply, rather than putting a static value, we can then link that up, and then we start getting into some serious stuff with formulas. Okay, so if we just click to be done there. Okay, so we just need to run that now, and we'll pop a value in there of say 57, calculate, and then we get the answer there as well. So there's a lot of similarities there. Personally, for me, Toddle's formula is just an absolute work of genius. I absolutely love it, and for me it sort of stands head and shoulders above everything else that I've seen. Now, one of the other major differences I should point out is that with variables, they're only available on pages, on the page level. So in Bubble you can actually add custom states on different elements, but people generally keep their custom states on the page, and it's just in Toddle you don't have a choice about that. You've got to keep that on the actual page itself. Now obviously in Bubble you also, let's just have a look at a reusable, which is a equivalent of a component. I've made a video about comparing reusables in Bubble to components in Toddle, and obviously what you can do in here is you can have your own custom states actually on reusables, and you can do the same thing in Toddle. You can have a component, for example, and you can then create your own variable specifically to that component. Now, components are seriously powerful in Toddle. They're head and shoulders above what you can do with Bubble in terms of comparing it directly to reusables, and it is one of the big draws for me in Toddle is their component structure. It's really, for a new tool, it's just come straight out of the gates. It's pretty incredible, to be honest. So like I said, I've already done a video. Maybe I'll do more to really highlight just how good I feel that Toddle's component system is. Okay, again, variables on the page or on the component level, not on individual elements. However, what you can do on individual elements is you can have attributes you can add. So you can add more, these standard HTML attributes, but you can add your own, which enables you to put more information on there on each element if you like. So I think we've gone long enough with this one. There's lots more I can cover. Now, one area that I do want to cover in a separate video is obviously when you are creating custom states, what you can do is you can add them as a list, which is really a nice feature in Bubble, and actually lists are key in Bubble. And you can also do that in Toddle as well. Toddle allows you to do lists as well, which, although we don't call them lists in Toddle, we call them arrays, which is how they are generally referred to in development in general. And you can sort of get the gist of what's happening is that Bubble tries to kind of abstract or hide all these kind of what they consider to be technical details away, but they're just renaming common structures in programming, such as arrays, such as strings, such as booleans and true and false. They're direct equivalents, but they're just trying to rename them to make them more non-techie friendly. But with Toddle, kind of you're more sort of going into that world of developer terminology, which is fine. It's just learning those different words. But anyway, I think we've gone long enough. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you watching this one. Go ahead if you got anything from it and like, and if you really want to, you can subscribe. You know the drill. So thanks again for watching. Take it easy. I'll see you again soon.